Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, General, and thank you, your family, and most importantly, please tell all the men and women that, that you lead how much we respect the choices they have made to protect our country. I'm going to be a broken record again and get to contracting. I've had a chance to review the cigar report that just came out, and even though we have made progress, and I will acknowledge we have made some progress, there are still some problems that I think we've got to talk about. And we're talking about $100 billion to contractors in Afghanistan in the last 8 years. I mean, this is real money. This is a significant amount of taxpayer resources that are going to contractors. The report cites problems that are cited over and over and over again. I think one of those problems, though, we have corrected, and I want to make sure on the record that you can confirm that. I put in the NDAA last year a provision that you cannot spend money building anything in areas of the country where we cannot get oversight personnel there to check, to see the progress, and to make sure the money is not walking away. In fact, are you confident now that there is no project that is ongoing with contractor money right now in Afghanistan paid for by U.S. dollars where our oversight personnel, our civilian oversight personnel, cannot get to it to look at it?
I believe so, ma'am, but I'd like to take that one for the record and go back and verify that and give you a more thorough answer.
That would be terrific, because what we learned is that there were areas that we were paying contractors, many of which were
Yes, ma'am.
local contractors, in areas that we couldn't get to because of security concerns, and that's where the money was disappearing, and things were not getting built.
Yes, ma'am.
And money was being wasted. 17 of the 45 construction projects that have been inspected since 2009 did not meet contract requirements and specifications. And apparently the DOD has acknowledged that in many instances that the U.S. forces lack the capacity to administer, oversee, and close contracts to ensure proper performance. I know you're being asked to do a lot, and I know it's hard, but do you think you have adequate forces to do the oversight necessary on this contract work that is so incredibly expensive?
Ma'am, the limitation on forces limits our ability to do oversight. There's no question about it. In fact, we're in a situation where we have to substitute contractors for service members to do functions that normally service members would do. So I offered a couple of examples earlier. For example, on aviation maintenance, we bring in contract mechanics to maintain our helicopters because we leave their mechanics back in the States because of force manning limitations. Now, I acknowledge I have authority to move these forces around, but the overall limitation puts us in a situation where we try to optimize having uniformed service members doing only things that they can do and substituting contractors wherever possible so that we can maximize our advisory effort. But we have gotten to a point now where I think from a commander standpoint, would rather see soldiers doing what soldiers are trained to do and then not spend the money on contractors, which is inevitably more expensive.
Inevitably.
Yes.
And it's one of those things that we do this a lot in government under the guise of, saying, well, we're going to limit how many employees we have or how many, what our ground strength is. That doesn't change the requirements of a federal agency, and it certainly doesn't change the mission of our military.
Right.
So we just plus up contractors many times without adequate scoping, without adequate work on the contract, without oversight, paying contractors bonuses when they've done a terrible job. So I just didn't want to let this moment pass without telling you that there's somebody that's still paying really close attention on the contractor side, and I'll look forward to working with you on that. Corruption is a big part of this. Do you believe that we have made any progress overall in Afghanistan on the corruption front?
I think we've made some progress recently. President Ghani's very committed to this.
I know he did that agency, the government agency, right? The corruption, the development phase of the ACJC, the anti-corruption effort he's doing.
So, for example, the Anti-Corruption Justice Center you just mentioned, stood up by President Ghani and with support of the international community. We had our first trial of a two-star general in the Ministry of Interior. He was convicted of 14 years in jail for engagement in bribery concerning a fuel contract. We have pulled back fuel contracts under CSTICA instead of the ministries because of the corruption that was linked to them. We are going after the reduction of ghost soldiers.
Right.
And we are holding back the money in terms of pay accounts until they can verify they have the people. So these efforts alone, for example, fuel contracts total $200 million. By putting them under control of our contracting officials, we can reduce that space for corruption. Same with the pay.
That's great.
These are the two greatest areas. I should point out President Ghani initiated a body called the National Procurement Council, and he now, because of the corruption surrounding contracting, he personally oversees the awarding of the large government contracts in a committee that's transparent. We attend it, CGAR attends it, our own contracting officials attend it, and then they work through a very rigorous process to try and reduce the space for corruption in the contracting process. So back to your original question, I do think under President Ghani's leadership, we have made progress. Are we finished? Absolutely not. We have a lot more work left to do.
Thank you. And if, for the record, if we could get the relative strength and numbers of the 20 different terrorist groups that you say are on the ground in Afghanistan, I think it'd be good for us to get in perspective where the numbers are and even any help that you can give us in a non-classified setting in terms of geographic location.
We've
Thank
got
you.
that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.